When my ex-husband's lawyer slapped that DNA test on the judge's desk, I actually laughed. But when my own mother stood up from the back row and said, "I switched her at birth," the entire courtroom went silent. I'm Marlo, and I'm about to tell you how my entire life unraveled in a single afternoon. My name is Marlo Stevens. I'm 34 years old, and for the past 3 years, I've been raising my 7-year-old daughter, Poppy, on my own. That morning, I walked into that courtroom ready to fight another round in what had become the most exhausting battle of my life. My ex-husband, Derek, sat at the plaintiff's table, his new wife beside him, both dressed in designer clothes that probably cost more than my monthly rent. Derek owns 3 tech companies now. When we met in college, he was just a nerdy kid with big dreams. Now he's worth millions and apparently thinks money can buy him anything, including our daughter. Poppy is everything to me. She has these wild auburn curls that never stay in place no matter how many hair ties I use. She laughs at her own jokes before she even finishes telling them. Every night, she insists on reading me a bedtime story instead of the other way around because she says I work too hard and deserve someone to tuck me in for a change. She's 7 going on 70, that kid. My mother, Nadine, was sitting in the back row of the courtroom that day. She'd been a nurse at Riverside General for 30 years before retiring last spring. Something was off about her that morning. When I'd stopped by her house to drop off Poppy before court, she'd hugged me longer than usual. Her hands were shaking when she handed me a coffee. "Whatever happens today, remember that love makes a family," she'd said. I'd brushed it off as typical mom worry. She'd been saying odd things like that ever since the custody battle started. "Mom, why are you acting so strange? It's just another hearing," I'd told her. She'd just smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. "I'll be there in the gallery. You're not alone in this." Derek's lawyer, Mr. Cromwell, was exactly the kind of attorney you'd expect a millionaire to hire. Silver hair slicked back, suit that looked like it was sewn directly onto his body, and this way of talking that made everything sound like a personal attack. He'd been trying to paint me as an unfit mother for months. His latest angle was that I worked 2 jobs, as if trying to provide for my daughter was somehow neglectful. I worked days at a dental office doing billing, and 3 nights a week stocking shelves at a grocery store. Not glamorous, but it kept a roof over our heads and food on the table. The judge, Judge Harrison, was an older woman with kind eyes who'd been patient with both sides throughout this mess. She'd seen it all in family court, but even she wasn't prepared for what was about to happen. That morning started like every other hearing. Cromwell stood up with his theatrical presence, straightening his tie like he was about to deliver a closing argument in some murder trial. "Your Honor, we have new evidence that will fundamentally change the nature of this case," he announced. I remember rolling my eyes. What now? Were they going to claim I fed Poppy non-organic vegetables? That I let her watch too many cartoons? I'd heard it all from them. Derek sat there with this smug expression, the same one he used to wear when he'd close a big business deal. His new wife, Veronica, who was barely 25, placed her manicured hand on his arm like she was comforting him through some great ordeal. "This evidence will prove that Ms. Stevens has been perpetrating a fraud not just on my client, but on the court itself," Cromwell continued, reaching into his briefcase with the kind of dramatic flair that should have warned me something devastating was coming. I glanced back at my mom. She was gripping her purse so tight her knuckles had gone white. At the time, I thought she was just worried about me. I thought she was being a supportive mother, scared for her daughter who was fighting a battle against someone with unlimited resources. I had no idea she was sitting there knowing that our entire world was about to explode. The courtroom was small, one of those family courtrooms that feels more like a conference room than a place where lives get decided. The fluorescent lights hummed overhead. Someone's phone buzzed in the gallery despite the signs saying to silence them. Normal sounds of a normal day that was about to become anything but normal. "Proceed, Mr. Cromwell," Judge Harrison said, adjusting her glasses. That's when he pulled out the manila envelope. That's when everything changed. That's when I learned that everything I thought I knew about my life, my family, and my daughter was built on a foundation of lies that went back decades. 3 years ago, when Derek told me he wanted a divorce, I was devastated but not surprised. We'd been growing apart since Poppy was born. He'd thrown himself into building his tech empire while I'd thrown myself into being a mother. The night he left, Poppy was 4 years old, sitting at the kitchen table coloring a picture of our family. She'd drawn Derek floating above the house like some kind of absent ghost. Kids know more than we think they do. The divorce itself was quick and relatively civil. Derek didn't want custody back then. He was too busy launching his third startup, flying to Singapore and Tokyo for investor meetings. He'd send expensive gifts for Poppy's birthday and Christmas, but couldn't be bothered to show up for her dance recitals or parent-teacher conferences. I was fine with that arrangement. More than fine, actually. Poppy and I had our rhythm. Pancakes every Sunday morning, library trips on Wednesdays, movie nights on Fridays, where she always fell asleep halfway through and I'd carry her to bed. Our apartment wasn't much, just a 2-bedroom place above a bakery on Thornwood Avenue. The smell of fresh bread every morning made up for the creaky floors and the radiator that clanged like someone was trapped inside it. Poppy had decorated her room with glow-in-the-dark stars on the ceiling and drawings she'd made at school. My room was simpler. Just a bed and a dresser and photos of Poppy at every age covering the walls. Working 2 jobs meant I was tired all the time, but I'd learned to manage. At the dental office, I handled insurance claims and billing from 8 to 4. Dr. Brennan was understanding when I needed to leave for school pickups or when Poppy was sick. 3 nights a week, after Poppy was asleep and Mrs. Chen from next door was watching her, I'd head to Morrison's grocery to stock shelves until midnight. It wasn't the life I'd imagined when I was young, but it was ours, and it worked. Then 6 months ago, everything changed. Derek married Veronica, an influencer who posted daily videos about her perfect life. Suddenly, he was interested in being a father. More than interested, he was obsessed. He started showing up at Poppy's school unannounced, telling her teachers he was concerned about her welfare. He hired a private investigator to follow me around, documenting every time I was 5 minutes late to pick up because of traffic or when I had to bring Poppy with me to the grocery store job because Mrs. Chen was sick. He wants to give Poppy opportunities, his first letter from Cromwell had said. Private schools, tutors, a stable 2-parent household. What he really wanted was to complete his perfect family image. Veronica had been posting about becoming a bonus mom before she'd even met Poppy. They'd already decorated a room for her in their mansion, complete with a canopy bed and a closet full of designer clothes that Poppy would never wear because she lived in jeans and t-shirts with dinosaurs on them. My mother had been my rock through all of it. She'd come over every Tuesday to help with dinner and homework while I caught up on laundry and bills. She'd sit at my kitchen table with her reading glasses perched on her nose, helping Poppy with multiplication tables while I cooked spaghetti or grilled cheese sandwiches. "You're doing amazing, sweetheart," she'd tell me when I'd collapse next to her after Poppy was in bed. "That little girl is lucky to have you." My mother had raised me mostly alone, too. My father had died when I was 2, a car accident on an icy road. I didn't remember him, just the stories she'd told and a few faded photographs. She'd worked at the hospital, taking extra shifts to make ends meet, but she'd always been there for the important moments. Every school play, every birthday, every time I needed her. The morning of that courthouse hearing, I dressed carefully in my best outfit, a navy blazer I'd bought at a consignment shop and pressed slacks. I'd pulled my dark hair back in a bun that I hoped looked professional, rather than just tired. Poppy had helped me pick out my earrings, simple silver studs she'd given me for Mother's Day. "You look beautiful, Mommy," she'd said, straightening my collar, "like a lawyer on TV." "I'm not the lawyer, baby. I'm just fighting for us to stay together." "We'll always be together," she'd said with the confidence only a 7-year-old can have. "You're my mom. That's forever." Standing in that courtroom facing Derek's team of lawyers and his perfect new wife, I held on to those words. I thought about our little apartment, our Sunday pancakes, the way Poppy sang in the shower even though she could never remember all the words to any song. That was real. That was family. Whatever Cromwell was about to throw at us, I knew we could handle it. I was wrong. Cromwell held the manila envelope like it contained nuclear launch codes. The entire courtroom seemed to lean forward as he slowly pulled out a stack of documents. His face had this satisfied expression, like a cat who'd cornered a mouse. "Your Honor, we've uncovered information that fundamentally changes the nature of this custody dispute," he began, his voice carrying that courtroom authority that made my stomach clench. "Ms. Stevens has been perpetrating a fraud on this court and on my client. I felt my lawyer, Ms. Rodriguez, tense beside me. She was a public defender, overworked, but fierce, and she'd warned me that Cromwell might try something dramatic. But this felt different. This felt planned and calculated in a way that made my skin crawl. "That's a serious accusation, Mr. Cromwell," Judge Harrison said, removing her glasses. "I assume you have evidence to support such a claim." "Indeed, Your Honor." Cromwell walked to the judge's bench and handed her a document. "This is a DNA test conducted 3 weeks ago during Poppy Stevens' routine dental surgery at Bright Smiles Pediatric Dentistry, where Ms. Stevens happens to work." My blood went cold. 3 weeks ago, Poppy had her wisdom teeth checked. They'd done a cheek swab for some new bacteria screening the office was offering. I'd signed the consent forms without thinking twice because Dr. Brennan had recommended it. "We received a tip from a concerned party that there were irregularities in Poppy's birth records," Cromwell continued. "Given my client's resources, we were able to obtain a court order for DNA comparison." "You tested my daughter without my knowledge?" I stood up, my voice shaking with rage. "That's illegal." Ms. Rodriguez pulled me back down. "Let me handle this," she whispered, then stood. "Your Honor, this is highly irregular. Any DNA testing should have been disclosed to my client." Judge Harrison was reading the document, her expression growing more serious with each line. "Mr. Cromwell, explain the nature of these results." Cromwell turned to face me directly, and I saw something like pity flash across his face before the shark returned. "The DNA test proves conclusively that Ms. Stevens has no biological relationship to the child she claims is her daughter." The room exploded. I heard gasps from the gallery, saw Derek lean back in his chair with his arms crossed, watched Veronica whisper something in his ear. But all I could focus on was the ringing in my ears and the way the room seemed to tilt. "That's impossible," I said, my voice sounding far away. "I gave birth to her. I was in labor for 18 hours at Riverside General. I remember every minute of it." "Do you?" Cromwell pulled out another document. "Because according to hospital records, there were several irregularities that night. The attending nurse's notes are incomplete. The footprint records are smudged beyond recognition. And most interesting of all, the nurse who handled the delivery was Nadine Stevens, your mother." I turned to look at my mother in the gallery. Her face had gone completely white, and she was gripping the bench in front of her so hard I thought it might break. "Your Honor," Cromwell continued, "we believe Ms. Stevens has knowingly raised a child that is not hers, potentially as part of an elaborate scheme to extract child support from my client." "That's insane," I shouted. "I carried her for 9 months. I have ultrasound photos, pregnancy tests, everything." Derek finally spoke, standing up with that CEO authority he'd perfected. "Your Honor, this woman has been lying to everyone, including my daughter. That little girl deserves to know the truth about who she really is." "She knows who she is," I shot back. "She's Poppy Stevens, and I'm her mother." Judge Harrison raised her hand for silence. "Mrs. Stevens, I need you to respond to this evidence. Can you explain these test results?" Ms. Rodriguez whispered urgently in my ear. "We can request our own testing, challenge the chain of custody, file a motion to dismiss." But I couldn't focus on legal strategy. All I could think about was Poppy that morning, straightening my collar, telling me we'd always be together. I stood up slowly, my legs feeling like water. "Your Honor, I don't know how this test could be wrong, but I carried Poppy for 9 months. I felt her kick. I sang to her through my belly. I was there when she took her first breath." That's when I heard the scrape of a chair from the gallery. My mother was standing up, tears streaming down her face. "Stop, Marlo," she said, her voice breaking. "It's time you knew the truth." The judge's gavel came down hard. "Ma'am, please remain seated unless called upon." But my mother was already walking forward, her steps slow and deliberate like she was walking to her own execution. I'd never seen her look so old, so fragile. This woman who'd been my strength my entire life suddenly seemed to be carrying the weight of the world on her shoulders. "Mom, what are you doing?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper. She stopped at the bar separating the gallery from the court proper, her hands gripping the wooden barrier. "Your Honor, I need to speak. I have information relevant to this case." Judge Harrison looked between my mother and me. clearly trying to assess the situation. "Ma'am, are you represented by counsel?" "No, Your Honor, but what I have to say will explain everything." Cromwell was already on his feet. "Your Honor, this is highly irregular. This woman has no standing in this case." "She's my mother," I said, confusion and fear mixing in my chest. "If she knows something about Poppy's birth, she has every right to speak." Ms. Rodriguez stood. "Your Honor, if this witness has relevant testimony, my client has the right to hear it." The judge considered for a moment, then nodded. "Given the serious nature of the allegations presented, I'll allow it. Ma'am, please come forward. State your name for the record." My mother walked through the little gate, each step measured and careful. She looked at me as she passed, and I saw decades of pain in her eyes. "Nadine Stevens, Your Honor. I'm Marlo's mother, and I was a nurse at Riverside General Hospital for 30 years. "Ms. Stevens, what information do you have regarding this case?" My mother took a deep breath, and I watched her gather courage from somewhere deep inside. "The DNA test is accurate. Marlo is not Poppy's biological mother." The words hit me like a physical blow. I grabbed the edge of the table to keep from falling. "Mom, what are you saying? You were there. You delivered her." She turned to me, tears flowing freely now. "Yes, I was there, and that's exactly why I know the truth." Cromwell jumped on this immediately. "So you're admitting that Ms. Stevens has been raising a child that isn't hers?" "Let her speak," Judge Harrison commanded. My mother straightened her shoulders. 28 years ago, I worked in the maternity ward. My daughter, Marlo's older sister Rebecca, was pregnant. She was only 17, scared and alone. The father had left town. She went into labor during my shift. I felt the world shifting beneath me. "I don't have a sister. You never told me about a sister." "Because she died that night," my mother continued, her voice breaking. "Complications during delivery. She hemorrhaged. We couldn't save her. But her baby, the baby survived for 3 hours before her little heart gave out. She was so tiny, so perfect." The courtroom was completely silent. Even Cromwell had stopped writing notes. "That same night," my mother went on, "another baby was born. A teenage mother, no family, no support. She took one look at her daughter and walked out of the hospital, left her there. No name, no information, nothing." I started to understand where this was going, and my whole body began to shake. "Mom, no." I couldn't let Rebecca's death be for nothing. I couldn't go home and tell my husband we'd lost both our daughter and our granddaughter in one night. So I made a choice. I took that abandoned baby and put her in Rebecca's file. I told my husband that Rebecca died, but the baby survived. That baby was you, Marlo. The room erupted. Derek was on his feet shouting something about fraud. Cromwell was demanding immediate custody transfer. Ms. Rodriguez was objecting to everything, but all I could hear was the sound of my world crumbling. "You're not my mother." The words came out small, broken. "I raised you. I loved you. I am your mother in every way that matters," she said, reaching for me, but I pulled back. "And Poppy?" My mother's face crumpled completely. History has a way of repeating itself. When you were in labor, when your daughter was born, she had the same heart defect Rebecca's baby had. She lived for 2 hours, Marlo. I'm so sorry. But I held her, I nursed her, I took her home. You held a baby, you nursed a baby, you took a baby home. The same night you gave birth, another woman died in childbirth. She had no family, no one to claim her daughter. I couldn't watch you go through what I went through. I couldn't let you lose everything. Judge Harrison's gavel came down again and again, trying to restore order, but the chaos continued. This was the moment everything changed. 2 switches, 2 lies, 28 years of deception. And in the middle of it all, one question burned in my mind. If neither Poppy nor I were who we thought we were, then who were we to each other? You switched my baby. The words tore from my throat, raw and primal. You let me believe I was holding my daughter when my actual child was dead? My mother reached for me again, but I stumbled backward, crashing into my chair. The courtroom was in complete chaos. Judge Harrison was pounding her gavel, threatening to clear the room. Derek was standing, shouting about criminal charges. Cromwell was frantically taking notes, but all I could see was my mother's face, etched with 28 years of guilt. "Marlo, please understand," she begged. I watched you for 9 months, so happy, so excited to be a mother. When I saw that baby girl fighting to breathe, when I knew she wouldn't make it, I thought about Rebecca. I thought about how I'd lost everything in one night. I couldn't let that happen to you. So you stole someone else's child? Her mother was gone before the baby even cried. A 19-year-old girl named Trinity Woods. She died from complications. No family ever came forward. No one was looking for that baby. Judge Harrison finally restored order with the threat of contempt charges. Miss Stevens, Nadine Stevens, are you confessing to switching babies at birth? Twice? Yes, Your Honor. Once 28 years ago and once 7 years ago. Mom, who else knows? I managed to ask, my mind racing through every interaction, every family gathering. Did Dad know? Before he died, did he know I wasn't really his granddaughter? She shook her head. He died believing you were Rebecca's daughter. It was just me carrying this secret. Cromwell seized the moment. Your Honor, this confession proves our case entirely. Miss Stevens has no legal claim to this child. She's not an adoptive parent. She's not a biological parent. She's raising a child obtained through fraud. That's my daughter, I screamed. Standing so fast, my chair fell backward. I don't care what DNA says. I don't care how she came to me. I've raised her for 7 years. I'm the only mother she's ever known. But you're not her mother, Derek said coldly. You're nobody to her, just some woman who's been lying to her entire life. That's when something else occurred to me, something that made my blood run cold. Wait, Derek, if I'm not Poppy's biological mother, then neither are you her biological father. The room went silent again. Cromwell's face went pale as he realized the implications. The baby that died, my biological child, she was yours, Derek. But Poppy, if she was born to this Trinity Woods person, then who is her biological father? My mother spoke quietly. According to the records I saw, Trinity listed the father as unknown. Derek sank into his chair like someone had cut his strings. So neither of us is related to her? Your Honor, Ms. Rodriguez said, finally finding her voice. This child has been raised by my client for 7 years. Regardless of biology, my client is Poppy's psychological parent. The state recognizes legal adoption, Cromwell interrupted, recovering quickly. Which this is not. This is kidnapping. It's not kidnapping, Judge Harrison said sharply. It's complicated and possibly criminal, but the child wasn't taken from anyone who wanted her. Ms. Nadine Stevens, you understand you've just confessed to serious crimes? My mother nodded. I understand, Your Honor. I'm prepared for whatever consequences come. But please don't punish Marlo and Poppy for my choices. They love each other. They are a family. A family built on lies. Veronica spoke for the first time, her young voice cutting through the tension. That little girl deserves to know the truth. The truth? I turned on her. The truth is that I've been there every single day of her life. I've held her through every fever, celebrated every milestone, kissed every scraped knee. I've loved her with everything I have. What truth is more important than that? Judge Harrison removed her glasses and rubbed her temples. I need to consider all of this. We're taking a 30-minute recess. Ms. Nadine Stevens, do not leave this courthouse. You'll likely be taken into custody. Mr. and Ms. Stevens, Mr. Stevens and Ms. Marlo, I need you both to consider what's best for this child who, it appears, has no biological parents present in this room but has been raised by Ms. Marlo for her entire life. As the judge stood to leave, I heard a small voice from the hallway. Miss Patricia, I need my mom. Please, I need to see my mom. It was Poppy. The court's child advocate had been watching her in the children's room, but she must have sensed something was wrong. She always knew when I needed her, just like I always knew when she needed me. Biology or not, that was my daughter calling for me. And I was her mother. The judge wouldn't let Poppy into the courtroom during recess, but I could hear her in the hallway, arguing with the child advocate in that determined way she had when adults were being unreasonable. She needs me, Poppy kept saying. When someone's sad, you're supposed to hug them, that's the rule. That's the rule. My 7-year-old daughter understood more about love and family than anyone in that courtroom. When Judge Harrison returned, Her expression was grave but somehow softer. She'd spent that 30 minutes reviewing case law, making phone calls, figuring out how to untangle this mess my mother had created out of love and grief. "This is unprecedented in my courtroom," she began. "We have a child who has been raised for 7 years by a woman she believes is her mother. We have a biological father who isn't actually the biological father. We have crimes that were committed, but no victims seeking justice. And we have to consider what's best for this child." Cromwell stood. "Your Honor, the law is clear about custody rights." "Mr. Cromwell, nothing about this case is clear," the judge replied sharply. "But one thing I know after 20 years in family court is that children need stability. They need love. They need the people who have been their anchors." She turned to me. "Ms. Marlowe, you have raised this child since birth. You are the only mother she has ever known. While the circumstances of how she came to you are criminal, you yourself committed no crime. You believed she was your biological child." Then to Derek, "Mr. Stevens, you now know you have no biological claim to this child. Do you wish to continue pursuing custody?" Derek looked lost, all his CEO confidence drained away. He glanced at Veronica, who was already backing away from the situation, probably calculating how this would affect her social media brand. "I need time to think," he said quietly. "Unfortunately, this child doesn't have time for you to think," Judge Harrison said. "She needs to know where she's going home tonight." That's when my mother spoke up from where she was sitting with a court officer. "Your Honor, if I may, I've destroyed so many lives trying to protect the people I love. But one thing I didn't destroy was Marlowe's ability to be a mother. She loves that little girl with the same fierce devotion she would have given her biological child. Please don't take that away from them." The judge nodded slowly. "Here's my ruling. Ms. Marlowe retains temporary full custody, while the state sorts out the legal complexities. Adoption proceedings will be initiated immediately to formalize what has been reality for 7 years. Mr. Stevens, you'll have 30 days to decide if you wish to pursue any form of visitation rights, though I should note you'd have no legal standing to demand them." "What about her?" Derek pointed at my mother. "She committed fraud. She switched babies. She should be in prison." "That's for the district attorney to decide," Judge Harrison said. "But I suspect they'll consider the fact that no one was harmed who's alive to claim harm. The babies who died would have died regardless. The babies who lived were given loving homes." As we left the courtroom, my mother was taken into custody. She'd ultimately serve 6 months in a minimum security facility and 2 years of probation. But as they led her away, she looked at peace for the first time in my entire life. The secret that had been eating her alive was finally out. 3 months later, I received a letter. The return address was from Seattle. Inside, handwritten in careful script, was a message that changed everything once again. "Dear Marlowe, my name is Brianna Coleman. 28 years ago, I was 17 and pregnant. I was told my baby died during delivery at Riverside General, but recently a nurse who retired reached out to me after seeing news coverage of your case. She remembered that night. She remembered seeing a baby girl who looked just like me being wheeled to the nursery and then being told that baby had died. I don't want to disrupt your life. I don't want to take you from the family you know. I just wanted you to know that you were loved from the very first moment. I was young and scared, but I wanted you. I've thought about you every single day for 28 years. If you ever want to know where you came from, I'm here. With love, Brianna." I sat at my kitchen table, watching Poppy do her homework, and realized I now had 3 mothers. The one who gave birth to me, the one who raised me, and the one I'd become. Poppy looked up from her math worksheet and caught me staring. "Mom, you're being weird again," she said, grinning. "Sorry, baby, just thinking about how lucky I am." "Because you have me? Because I have you." She came over and wrapped her arms around my neck. "Mom, does it matter that we're not really related? Like with DNA and stuff?" I pulled her into my lap. This child who wasn't mine by blood, but was mine by every choice I'd made for 7 years. We're really related in every way that counts, baby girl. Love made us a family, not DNA. "Good," she said, settling against my chest, "because I picked you to be my mom, and I have excellent taste." I laughed, really laughed, for the first time since that courtroom revelation. She was right. We'd picked each other, even if neither of us knew it at the time. And that choice, renewed every single day through bedtime stories and homework help and Sunday pancakes, that was what made us family. If this story touched your heart, please hit that like button and share it with someone who needs to hear that family is about love, not just biology. Drop a comment below about what makes your family special, and don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more powerful real-life stories that remind us what really matters in life. Thank you for listening to my story.